welcome. I think it's just, I believe it might be the third time that I've had the pleasure of interviewing you. And so,
Yes, this is exciting.
and the fact that you're still around here doing it is good news. So for those that are unfamiliar with you or what your work is about, can you give us a little background?
Sure. So how long do you want me to talk? Because I can create diarrhea of the mouth. This is what I do so well.
Well, why don't we maybe like a 5-minute synopsis of
Got it.
background, and we can get into the
Got it. So I'm 73 years old, but when I was 71 years old, I thought I was basically the senior poster boy for a healthy lifestyle. I was lecturing around the country, I was writing, I was doing consults all over the world, and basically I was traveling at that point, April 2018, to a meeting in Austin, Texas. I was speaking at PaleoFX. And I had, while I was traveling, some soreness on my right shoulder from carrying a bag. And I thought, this is kind of strange. I never had pain before. And it seemed to linger. When I got home, the pain kind of went to my back. Then it went to my chest. And I'm a little bit pig-headed, so I didn't do anything about it until maybe, I guess it was August of 2018. Went to my doctor and said, you know, I think I pulled a muscle or a ligament or something's going on with my shoulder, and it's gotten painful in my chest now. And he said, yeah, I guess you're having pain. Let's do some blood tests. So he did the basic blood test, you know, a CBC, blood chemistries, everything came back normal, which is very interesting. But he did a inflammatory marker called a C-reactive protein. And generally, my C-reactive protein was usually below 0.5. At this point, it was over 6 or something like that. Obviously, something's going on. It doesn't tell where the inflammation is, but it is systemic, and he ordered an MRI. And at that point, I get this MRI. He calls me on the phone. He suggests that I come into the office or we can talk over the phone. I said, Bobby, how bad is it? Just let's talk over the phone. And he got very serious. First, he started kidding, and he said, did somebody push you down the steps, or did somebody beat you up? And I said, of course not. And then he gets very serious, and he says, on the MRI, I see several broken ribs, a vertebral compression fracture, and a hairline crack in your pelvis. And he said, I am concerned, and I think that you have either lymphoma, leukemia, or multiple myeloma. Whoa. I mean, here I am. I think I'm the poster boy for a healthy lifestyle, and I've just given a diagnosis of one of 3 types of cancer. How can that possibly be? So the oncologist gets called in. We do a variety of tests. There was a soft tissue mass on the side of my spine. All of a sudden, I get a diagnosis of IgA kappa, light chain multiple myeloma, which is incurable, and I'm given 3 to 6 months to live. Again, that is a heavy blow. So I'm thinking, my wife and my 2 adult kids are in the office with the oncologist, and he says, let's schedule chemotherapy tomorrow, and maybe we'll do some radiation because you can't breathe, and maybe because of the rib fractures, and maybe stem cell therapy, but he didn't think that was going to work. And I said, well, why am I going to do chemotherapy if you're telling me that my cancer is incurable? It's going to really screw up my quality of life. And he said, well, you will go into remission, but it will damage your quality of life. Fast decision, and I decided I'm not doing chemotherapy. I'm going to research some cancer protocols that are unconventional, and I start with that. And I do quite well. As a matter of fact, my oncologist is rather surprised because my chemistries are staying normal. My CBC is staying normal. The only thing that's a problem are the chemistries or the blood work for my multiple myeloma. They're not getting better. They're not getting worse. In 2019, all of a sudden, I have a susceptibility to pathological fractures, and what has happened is I fracture my right femur, crash to the floor, and at the same time break 2 more ribs and my humerus in half. At that point, I'm in excruciating pain. It's about a year after my diagnosis, and I'm ready to die. And I'm literally put in a hospital, ready to die, but within a couple weeks, because of certain situations that are occurring in Charleston, South Carolina, I have to be removed or transported from the hospital to my home in a hospice bed. And my wife gives me a little bit of tough love, and she forces me to get back on my unconventional cancer protocols and get a physical therapist in the house and start actually to rally. So I revoke hospice. I start to thrive. And long story short, May 8th of 2020, I have a new PET scan, and basically I am cancer-free based on the PET scan. I still am not in remission, but I'm doing quite well. But my cancer protocols include a diet, and I am on the carnivore diet. Now, that's not the only thing I do, so that is not what I would believe is the cure for or the remission of some of these malignant cancer cells. But in fact, it, as well as the other protocols, I believe have supported my immune system to enhance my healing. And here I am today, doing extremely well, feeling great.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it always makes me smile to see that you're, like you still do it and doing well and getting better, and you're. So let's talk about. You said diet obviously is not the only thing you're doing. What led you to, in the first place, select this as a diet rather than a whole other? Because there's a whole bunch of people that will say this diet or that diet has benefits with regard to cancer, and maybe it's not curative, but it's helpful. So what led you to land on a carnivore meat-based diet, and then let's get into some of these other protocols.
Sure. So basically, I was eating paleo 6+ years before I was even diagnosed with cancer. And we can talk about why I think I have cancer, which I think started over 4 decades ago, unbeknownst to me, of course. But paleo was the way I was eating. But when I got cancer diagnosis, I switched from a paleo to a paleo autoimmune just to remove some of the more irritating types of plants. However, I started to research the carnivore diet or an animal-based diet when I learned about the Paleomedicina clinic in Budapest, Hungary. So this is a medical clinic that has been treating patients, not rats and mice. They're treating human beings since 2011, and they've treated about 5,000 patients. And they treat basically severe chronic disease and various forms of cancer with their animal-based diet that they call the Paleolithic ketogenic diet. It is a very strict animal-based diet, but they do allow some plants up to maybe 30% of the volume of a plate of food with some of their patients, and those plants are basically paleo-friendly type of plants. But in their cancer patients, they generally treat only with 100% animal-based. And with their research, especially their published case reports of cancer patients, and some of the corroborating medical research, it blew me away, and I thought, I'm an N=1 experiment anyhow. So in January of 2020, the 1st of January, I switched from paleo autoimmune to a very strict carnivore diet. And that's what I was doing until maybe July or so of this year. And then I've begun to introduce a very small number of plants that have very low oxalates, phytates, or lectins. But very few, maybe 10% of my plate of food would be those types of plants, 90% animal-based. And animal-based meaning nose to tail. So it's not animal meat or muscle meat. It's fat in the ratio of 2 to 1 in grams, 2 grams of fat to 1 gram of protein, and certainly, of course, the organs and collagenous parts.
Yeah, and just and we're all pretty much familiar with the latter things. What was the you said eat 10% plants that are lectin-free, oxalate-free, and I can't remember what else you said. For what are
Phytates,
those?
yeah. So
Phytates.
basically,
What are those?
basically, I might eat some mushrooms. I might eat some onions. Arugula fits in that category. Sometimes some romaine lettuce. Some of the fruits could fit in that category, watermelons, apples. Again, I am trying to maintain at least or no more than 25 grams of carbs a day or less. And I want to stay in ketosis for a good bit of period of time, but I also want to be metabolically flexible. So I obviously I'm fat adapted, but I will eat some foods that put me out of ketosis maybe once a week so that I am metabolizing glucose more efficiently. And to do that, I will eat a little bit more fruits and vegetables to get to maybe 100 grams of carbs and then go back to the carnivore diet with less than 20 grams of carbs for another 6+ days and then cycle in and out. So I'm trying to maintain this metabolic flexibility. I'm trying to maintain a very, very healthy glycemic variability because the research that I have found is that if we can maintain a standard deviation of glycemic variability of less than 14, that is ideal and suggests a robust immune system. A robust immune system for me is everything because I have a cancer of the plasma cells. Theoretically, my resistance to infection should be extremely poor. I should be getting sick if I'm around anybody that is sick. Yet that's not happening. I'm doing amazingly well. And the standard deviation of my glycemic variability is 10, which also shocked my oncologist. I did a 2-week continuous glucose monitor to evaluate my glycemic variability. And even the dietitian, when she reported the results to me, was floored because anything less than 14 is extremely good, and mine was 10 based on what I'm eating, and that's what I just explained to you. In essence, a carnivore diet, but I cycle out and go into a higher carb once a week just to maintain metabolic flexibility.
Yeah, and so you're saying I assume that's using, is it milligrams per deciliter? 14. I'm trying to remember the units on there, but
so I mean, it's the standard. I'm not sure the glucose measurement, but it's the U.S. standard measurement.
yeah.
But the variability is the critical part. It's not necessarily the milligrams of glucose that are in the blood. It's the ability for your insulin to be sensitive enough to not have high spikes and valleys of glucose in the blood. So it's the body's ability to be very metabolically flexible, but also very efficient, so that I'm not having the potential or risk of metabolic syndrome or any of the other cardiovascular and cancer risks that would be associated with a high fluctuation of glucose.
So metabolic flexibility is something that people have been talking about recently, the last year or two. What does it mean to you, and why do you feel that's important? What research have you seen that shows that maintaining metabolic flexibility is somehow going to confer some advantage?
So if I go back to, there's a lot of research on Paleomedicina Clinic, as well as some very recent PubMed papers on metabolic flexibility. It shows that for the most part, our evolutionary development, Homo sapiens from 160,000 years ago till today, have literally been metabolically flexible because they've lived, for the most part, in a state of ketosis. So their body has the ability to withdraw or not eat carbohydrates, which the body obviously doesn't store very well, and start to metabolize the fat that is in our body to use as fuel. And what happens is when there is no active carbohydrates or significantly lower carbohydrates in the diet, we have a low insulin level that enhances the breakdown of fat cells, and once those fat particles get into the liver creates ketones, and the ketones are extremely efficient at providing fuel, and ketones are not a good source for energy for cancer cells. So this is the fat adapted concept, where your body knows how to metabolize fat without craving for sugar. Basically, the average American diet, the average person that is eating the standard American diet, they eat whatever it is that has a lot of carbs. They have this glucose spike, then the glucose starts to decrease, and they have cravings, but the cravings are not for real food. They're craving carbohydrates because of the dopamine and everything. Basically, they're addicted to carbohydrates, so they eat more carbs. If you were fat adapted and or metabolically flexible, when you didn't have the carbohydrates that you're metabolizing, your body doesn't crave the carbohydrates any longer. It is used to, and it knows how to then start, because the insulin level is low, start metabolizing fat cells. And the fat cells are going to create the fuel. And when your body needs some more glucose, it can make its own glucose, or you will have glucose in your diet. You'll have some carbs, and your body will know how to take those carbs and metabolize it for fuel, store it what it needs in the liver, but you're not eating in excess so that you're storing more fat. When you're not eating the carbs, your body goes back into the other state of lipolysis to remove or break down the triglycerides, which are in the fat cells, and then you can still go ahead and burn those as fuel based on ketones. So ketones are what I am looking for, because there are some interesting research papers that suggest a ketogenic diet is healthy, or ketosis is healthy for patients with cancer. And the Paleomedicina Clinic has several case reports where they put their patients, like I said, on their animal-based diet. They're basically in ketosis for the most part, and they're getting pretty impressive results of not only remission but cures of cancers that are in the United States, for example, are basically incurable. That impressed me tremendously.
Yeah, and so I certainly, and we all understand that part. I guess the question is, what is the necessity for adding the carbs back in the diet? I don't think the Paleomedicina group typically does that.
Well, actually, they do with not necessarily their cancer, unless they've got the cancer under control, but they will recommend up to 30% volume of plants. So they do that. Everything that I am reading suggests that if you have the ability to switch to carbohydrates once in a while, I'm doing it once a week, it could be once every 2 weeks, then it helps your insulin levels, repair tissues. You get a lot of repair when you're in a fasting state, but you also get some growth of cells that need repair and growth when your insulin levels are higher. The IGF is stimulated. A variety of cell building occurs, which sometimes is not a good idea for cancer cells, but you're flexible and you can move back and forth. So the research I'm reading suggests it's a good idea, but not frequently. So once a week, maybe once every other week, just to maintain this flexibility, the ability for my body to move in and out of burning fuel as either glucose or ketones or triglycerides.
What is, so you've been doing this now, remind me, Al, when was the diagnosis?
So it was September of 2018.
2018, so you're now 2 years, basically. 2 years in. So that's I mean, considering you're having pathologic fractures and all that stuff, what is your level of physical, I mean, having a broken femur, broken humerus, all kinds of lytic lesions. And you said, what's going on with the bones right now?
Well, the bones are lytic, and so I'm fragile. I am fragile. But knowing that, and knowing what unfortunately happened in 2019, it's kind of a silly, stupid, but scary situation. I was literally standing in my bathroom brushing and flossing my teeth, which I know how to do very well. And so I was turning to the left. I'm standing on the floor turning to the left to throw the dental floss away. And as soon as I turned to the left, my right femur snapped in half and I crashed to the floor, broke the 2 ribs and my humerus all at one time. And that's eventually put me in hospice. So I know that I am very fragile. What I am doing, I do a few things that maybe can heal my bone, but what I'm doing is just being careful. But I do exercise. I walk, now that I'm pretty much healed, I walk about a mile a day outside. I do some modified exercises inside. I do some modified squats and modified push-ups. I'm limited with my push-ups. I used to do pull-ups, which I can't do with my arm, and I'm limited because of my right arm. The right arm that was fractured in half never was set, so I have that a little crooked humerus going on there, and I can't do complete push-ups, certainly can't do pull-ups. So I do that. I do get exercise every day, and I move around. For the most part, I'm walking or standing. I'm not sitting for the most of the day. So my bones are still fragile. I don't have a current bone density. As a matter of fact, my oncologist and I have talked about getting a new bone density scan. You know, the PET scan does show a lot of the lytic lesions, but it doesn't identify the density or the mineralization of the bone. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that other than be careful and try to support my bone health. I use pulse electromagnetic field therapy. If you're familiar with that, which is really fascinating research for not only soft tissue but bone healing, it is used for patients with severe osteoporosis to help bone remineralization. So I do pulse electromagnetic field therapy 3 times a day with a little mat that lays on my bed, and I just lay on it. It's kind of like a yoga mat, very soft. You can't really feel it, and I use a variety of frequencies that are theoretically helpful for bone healing.
Let me one thing you had talked about ketosis. I know that and maybe paleomedicine will use this as well. Glucose ketone index, is that something you're looking at? Is that something you're? I think
I was doing that. I do not like to stick my finger. So I had the, what's it called, Mojo Keto, little gadget, and I was taking my glucose and my ketone levels several times a day. And you know, you got to do what you're comfortable doing. Sometimes if you're treated for cancer, I've seen patients in the clinic get treated for cancer and the side effects are worse than the cancer. I don't like sticking my finger constantly, and for me to get levels that make sense, I literally have to stick my finger maybe 5 to 10 times a day and do it every day. It didn't make sense to me. So when I learned about the continuous glucose monitor, which is a little gadget that attaches to your arm, puts a little fiber into the interstitial tissues, and it registers the interstitial glucose level literally every 5 to 10 minutes for the period of time it's on your body, which is 2 weeks, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For 2 weeks, it records that glucose level. And I think knowing what I know and what I'm eating, I know if I have low glucose, or low carbohydrates, I am in ketosis. So I don't know how, what the level ketone bodies are, but I do know that I am in ketosis, and I know what's really critical is that glucose variability, how it fluctuates literally every 5-10 minutes, when I'm eating, when I'm not eating, when I'm sleeping, when I'm exercising, whatever. And that is, in my mind, from my research, so causal as to the risk of chronic disease and cancer, as well as the robustness of your immune system. And you know what? everything is related to the immune system. All this virus that is going around in the world has a lot to do with a lot of dysfunctional immune systems based on the way we eat. And to support the immune system, in my mind, is everything.
Somebody had asked about one of the things the Paleomedicina group uses is PEG 400 for intestinal permeability. Is that something you had looked into?
Actually, I did. I looked into it. I took it. I had slight but not significant permeability based on that test. And I have a very good friend that is involved actually in the research team at Microbiome Labs, who has just created a stool test that is quite unique because it's utilizing whole sequence genome testing, which is pretty interesting in and of itself, and it's been done through Cosmos ID, which is a international group that does some significant culturing or testing of the microbiome in the gut. And it indicates the variability of species of microbes in my gut. And one of the things that is critical for a healthy gut is a variety of species. And mine is almost off the charts for extreme health. Not normalcy, because it's much better than an average normal person. It is very difficult to test for increased intestinal permeability or a leaky gut. There are a lot of tests on the market, but many of them show a lot of false positives and negatives. And this test they do it at Paleomedicina, and it's not available in the United States. I actually had to go to a lab in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, to do the test. My friend at Microbiome Labs has indicated that even though they're doing that test, it is not a reliable test. So I know it's out there. I probably will have another one done later on just to see where it is compared to where it was when I took it several months ago. But my concern is the diversity of microbes in my gut and the fact that I have a good sequence of garden of bacteria that is not dysbiotic.
Yeah, and I guess one of the confounders is when you took the test, you've already been on a diet for a while, so it may be reflected differently if you were back on a standard American diet or something else.
Yeah, well, actually, I took the test. I'm thinking now. I think that I took the test prior to Carnivore, but of course, I was still paleo autoimmune. It will be interesting now that I've done Carnivore for so many months and continue to enhance my my gut microbiome, because that's a very active protocol that I'm involved with. It would be interesting to see where that test is. I tried to do the test, but the lab is shut down because of COVID in England. So as soon as they reopen, I might try to do the test again. It's a matter of going to Great Britain. They have to send the sample to me, and then I have to send the sample to them by FedEx, and then they'll test it. But it's not done in the United States for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. You had alluded to you think you think one of the reasons you ended up with cancer was because I think you mentioned, I'd heard you say before, something you're exposed to in the course of your career as in dentistry. Can you touch on that a little bit?
So you have to understand, I'm a real geeky kind of guy. So after I was diagnosed with this cancer, I needed to figure out why I got cancer, because the prior 6 years I thought I was a healthy guy. I was on paleo lifestyle, paleo diet. How could a healthy guy get cancer? Even people have responded to me and said, well, obviously what you're eating isn't healthy. And my response was, well, I don't think I got cancer in the last 6 years. It just manifested all of a sudden. So I did some research, and I found a paper, a study that was done, published I think in 2010 or 12, something like that, where this researcher looked at a male population in my cohort. So male dentists in the age of 65 to 75 compared to the general male population of 65 to 75. And that researcher found out that these male dentists had a significant increased risk of cancer, especially multiple myeloma, which is my cancer, my disease. The paper didn't discuss why that was the case, but that's what they found. So I kind of, I tried to figure out what I did when I was in dental school, 4 years of dental school, 2 years of graduate school in specialty periodontics. What did I do that was different than the general male population or the general population? And two things really stand out that I believe is the cause. Number one, I was exposed to low dose ionizing radiation all the time. That would be dental x-rays. And it has been shown and proven that dental x-rays, low dose ionizing radiation, will cause cancer, plasma cells to become malignant. So I am in a clinic where there are 4 dental students that share one x-ray machine, and there's over 100 or about 120 students in the clinic. So there's lots and lots of x-ray machines that are going on and off all the time. And this is the early 1970s. So, you know, I'm kind of an old guy here. So there was not a lot of control. At least we didn't wear badges to determine if we were getting too much radiation. And I am sure I was walking around the clinic when these x-ray machines were turning on and off without realizing it. You don't know that they're on or off unless you see the red light fly or flicker, because they don't make a sound, or they don't make a smell, or you can't feel this. So I don't know, but I am sure that I was exposed to some excessive radiation. The other thing is that in dentistry, back then, and sadly it's still taught today, mercury restorations are used to fill teeth, dental amalgams. And in those days, we had to mix the free mercury with this metallic powder to create a slurry and put it in teeth, patients' teeth that had tooth decay. But we played with the free mercury in our hands like kids played with Play-Doh today. So I was exposed to free mercury constantly. And what we did in the dental clinic, which you can't, I mean, it's unimaginable, but we did it. We threw the excess mercury, these little silvery beads that were so cute, we threw them on the floor and just let them just run and dance on the floor until they disappeared. Of course, they vaporized. Who knew that? And who knew how toxic that was? A dental school in the 70s was probably the most toxic building in the United States because of all this free mercury that vaporized from using it in dental amalgam. So I believe that either the mercury and or the constant exposure to ionizing low-dose radiation caused one plasma cell in my body to not only become malignant, but it became malignant and it wouldn't kill itself off by apoptosis, and my immune system, for whatever reason, didn't gobble it up with a macrophage, and it started to multiply and eventually got to the point where it manifested 44 years later. I can't hear you anymore.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, so, well, obviously it's hard to say with that, with absolute certainty, but you know.
Well, you know what? I will testify on a Bible that that is what caused my cancer, because I believe that toxic load has everything to do with cancer. Cancer is not a cancer. Cancer is not a disease of terrible genes, although you may have a predisposition. Cancer is a disease of metabolic dysfunction and mitochondrial dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction I can take care of by my diet. Mitochondrial dysfunction I think I can take care of partly by diet, partly about improving my microbiome, and definitely by enhancing my cell health and cell energy production by pulse electromagnetic field therapy. So I think I have a handle on those two, but I do believe that those two were highly affected by the ionizing radiation and the mercury. I think so.
Interesting. Well, And I guess you're retired right now, so you're not exposed.
No, I am definitely not retired. I'm
No.
retired from clinical patients, but I am busier now than ever because I do so many consults around the world because people, I guess, have learned my cancer story and what I've done. And, you know, the immune system is such a hot topic. People want to know how I'm trying to enhance my immune system, which has a lot to do with anybody's health. But also, I do a lot of research and writing about the gut microbiome and periodontal disease. And actually, the gut microbiome, dysbiosis in the gut, starts periodontal disease. It does not start in the mouth. It starts in the gut, then goes to the mouth, and then there's a vicious cycle between. And then its total relationship to other chronic diseases. I believe all disease starts in especially all chronic disease, for the most part, let's say 95%, start in the gut. I even wrote a little mini ebook called Is Your Gut Killing You? And it really goes into the depths, uses quite a number, over 290 peer-reviewed medical papers that support the hypothesis of the gut is the critical source of the spread of chronic disease.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that our gut definitely has a role in our health, you know, as far as what percentage.
But, you know, the Paleomedicina Clinic does not emphasize gut health. They emphasize that we have to have no leaky gut, but they don't do anything to restore the microbiome other than a healthy diet. And healthy diet will do it. But if you can enhance the diversity, the quantity, quality, and diversity of the microbiome in the gut, you'll get a faster result and a more efficient healing of the gut lining to heal a leaky gut. I think that's a critical element. Diet and the gut restoration, I think, are two of the most critical elements in my protocol.
Yeah, I think some of the criticism might fall on the fact that many probiotics, prebiotics have been shown to not really be particularly efficacious, and they don't seem to, you know, I mean, it may be very short-lived, the effect, and so if the diet is long-term better, you're going to end up with a better result anyway. So what are you saying when you say, how do you enhance the gut and make that be a chronic, permanent change without
Absolutely. Great question. So you are right. 90 to 95% of the probiotics that people take are relatively inefficient because they're looking for those probiotics to get into the gut and regenerate or repopulate themselves, germinate themselves. That's not what happens. When you take lactobacillus species and bifidobacteria species, which are the two main phyla of the microbiomes in probiotics, those create lots of healthy chemical structures called metabolites that actually can get into the intestines and do some benefit to the gut microbiome. But the living bacteria, the lactobacillus species, the bifidobacterium species, literally are killed in the stomach acid. So those probiotics that are touted to literally regenerate in the gut don't do that. Their metabolites are effective, but they cannot live in the gut only because they're killed in the stomach. There are only certain types of probiotics that are resistant to stomach acid, and they're basically the spore-based probiotics. These are natural probiotics that are in organic soil. They come from cattle, for example, that defecate. The spores go into the soil. They are dormant in the soil. They're not living, reproducing in the soil. You eat them either through a variety of types of foods or whatever, and they are resistant to the stomach acid. When they get into the gut, the environment of the gut, the intestine, the small as well as the large intestine, allows them to grow and regenerate and repopulate themselves. These are bacillus spore species, and they produce a huge benefit to the gut, but also they create a host of metabolites, chemical derivative or chemical biologically active chemicals that support your natural gut microbiome to grow in number and quality and quantity. Your gut microbiome, which is a huge number of species is as unique to you as your fingerprint. So no one has the same microbial signature, just like no one else has the same fingerprint as another. And we can't put a bacterium or a series of bacterial species in the gut and say, these are healthy for you. That's not true. I mean, what is healthy for you may not be healthy in my gut, and vice versa. But if we can use spores, which are natural, and they can reproduce themselves and enhance our own microbiome to grow back the way it was supposed to, that is what's healthy. And we develop our signature microbiome by the age of 2.5 to 3 years old. And that's what stays with us throughout our entire life. Then it starts to change as we get older. But the research that suggests it's changing only is research that's done on generally unhealthy people. So I'm not so sure that that's true. If you were to eat a carnivore-ish or a strict carnivore diet with getting all the nutrients from nose to tail, I think that the statistics would say your immune system stays healthy throughout life until something breaks down and you die. We're all going to die. That's true, but it should not be because our immune system has weakened. I think our immune system weakens as we age only because all the statistics are from people that are aging that are on standard American diets. So it's all tainted history. Research. I don't think that that's true.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with you. With a lot of our standard reference ranges and research is predicated on human beings eating probably not a human appropriate diet. So I think
I agree.
We really have to question almost all the research, quite honestly.
Well, a great example is the emphasis on fiber today, right? Everybody thinks, and all the research suggests, except some, that you have to have these huge number of grams of fiber, or number one, you won't have good motility in the gut, and you'll never produce the short-chain fatty acids that the gut microbiome requires. However, the newest research clearly shows that the gut microbiome is very adapted to ferment amino acids to create the short-chain fatty acids it requires with 0 grams of fiber. And in addition, the motility of the gut has a lot to do with the mast cells that are in the internal structure of the gut epithelial barrier, not the ones that are floating around in the bloodstream, but that has a lot to do with motility, which is not affected by fiber. So, when I started the carnivore diet, I was told, oh my God, you are going to have constipation. You're never going to have a normal bowel movement. I never had a problem. I am as regular as I want to be.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we don't talk about it too much because there's a lot of emphasis on the fact that eating fiber allows the production of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid, which is supposed to help the colonocytes. But you can make propionate, acetate, methylbutyrate, and some others from protein. I mean, these things are all
exactly.
Not to mention that ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate, converts in between butyrate and back, and some people think that it's actually the beta-hydroxybutyrate that's more beneficial to the colonocytes than the butyrate even. So it's I think there's a lot of focus just to sell more fiber products, in my view. But
I am totally in agreement with you, and of course, the vegan community is all over it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me ask
the most interesting, let me just interject real fast. The most interesting thing is that I post a lot of articles on my website and other social media. I made a huge mistake of posting on a couple alternative cancer sites. I wanted to share some of my thoughts and my success and the research from Paleomedicina Clinic, which is very, very good stuff, and talked about the carnivore diet. Oh my God, I had no idea that most of these sites were vegan. You cannot believe the vitriol that was directed at me because I was killing people with my red meat diet. I was told to get off this site fast, doc. I mean, it was just amazing. absolutely amazing. And I thought I was sharing with these alternative interested cancer patients. Not so.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter how many people get better or how
No.
many people's lives are transformed. That's irrelevant. It's all about it's about an ideology and a belief system rather than trying to help people, which is unfortunate. Let me ask you, with a background in dentistry, a lot of people have concerns about, I haven't talked about this much, but some people are concerned about types of fillings, particularly the amalgam fillings or the mercury fillings. Are they a problem for people? Yes or no? Or what are your thoughts?
Yes. Yes.
How so?
Here is something that is very disturbing. The Food and Drug Administration always makes a statement about mercury fillings in the mouth, and they were charged to do another investigation this year and come up with their new recommendations. And it was thought that they would eventually look at the research, the science that's behind everything, and say, mercury is a toxic heavy metal, and it should not be used in the mouth. And instead, they said, well, if you're pregnant or a couple other medical conditions other than pregnancy, maybe you shouldn't have mercury fillings. But their bottom line was mercury fillings are healthy and not a detriment to our health. That is a sad statement. Mercury, free mercury, is released from every silver filling, which is the colloquial name, but it's a dental amalgam, every 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constantly. How much is released? It's dependent on how you're chewing and what condition that mercury filling is, but it's released. And this is a toxic heavy metal that you are accumulating in your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for how many X number of years that the filling was in your mouth. Now, it is true that your body knows how to detoxify from mercury. Your body knows how to make its own endogenous glutathione. It knows how to take this mercury and detoxify it. But the fact is, you are constantly exposed to this highly toxic element, 10 times more toxic than lead, and you're allowing it to be in your body. There are so many things that we can't control. One of the things we can control are the fillings that are put in our teeth, and we should be using biocompatible materials, not putting things that are absolutely known to be highly toxic to the human body in our body. It just makes no sense. So to answer your question, mercury fillings are unhealthy. The question is, if you have mercury fillings, should you remove them? And the answer is, it's not easy to determine that, because if a mercury filling is removed incorrectly, it is more toxic to your body than leaving it in, because when the dentist drills out this filling and they don't do it correctly with a lot of highly specialized filters and a variety of protocols to protect you from the vapor, then that vapor gets into your bloodstream, it gets into your respiratory tract. It's detrimental. So you have to, if you're removing mercury fillings, it has to be done by a dentist who knows how to remove them correctly. Unfortunately, if you have theoretically a healthy dental filling that's mercury, and your dentist tells you you need to remove all your fillings, that dentist could lose his license or her license, because it's considered unethical to remove healthy mercury fillings, because the FDA has stated that there's nothing wrong with them.
Obviously, we've known that mercury is toxic to the body for hundreds of years, I would assume. At what point did they decide it was a good idea to put it in the mouth? What were the properties and why was it done? And is this something that's still commonly practiced in the US today?
So it's over 100 years old. So mercury has been done forever and ever and ever. It is an amalgamation, meaning that the free mercury chemically binds to some of the other metallic structures of the powder, and it becomes theoretically inert. Theoretically, maybe it was determined to be inert, but all the research suggests that I read today that the free mercury vapor is constantly off-gassed or exuded through into the mouth from this filling. Is it in use today? Sadly enough, in my opinion, because the FDA has allowed it and approves it every year, the dental schools today are still teaching students how to place mercury fillings into the teeth. To me, that is malpractice, because it is a highly toxic substance that has significant potential to create other bodily harm. And it doesn't happen right away. It can take years and decades to affect the immune system that is compromised and eventually affects other chronic diseases.
I guess the one thing I would say is, why do we even have cavities? It doesn't seem like we're supposed to have cavities if we were eating appropriate diet. Is there any truth to that?
So if you look at animals in the wild do not have periodontal disease and do not have tooth decay. If you look at domesticated cats and dogs, they have lots of tooth decay and lots of periodontal disease. Why is that? Just look at the label that are the ingredients in cat food and dog food. You know, cats are obligate carnivores, but the first 2 or 3 ingredients in cat food are grains. So the food has everything to do with the gut microbiome and the susceptibility of the potential pathogenic bacteria in the mouth. If you're eating sugars that are processed, not necessarily the sugar of a banana, but you're eating strawberries that have a lot of powdered sugar on them or whatever, all the products that you make that have sugar in it or added sugar, grain products with their phytic acid, they damage they bind to the minerals in foods, so it prevents natural mineralization of teeth, and they certainly feed the pathogenic bacteria, especially the sugars, producing the acid and creating tooth decay. If we look at our ancestors from 10 to 20,000 years ago and look at their skeletal remains, you will find, for the most part, the jawbone intact, meaning they don't have periodontal disease, and you will find the tooth structure not decayed. And the reason is their food was not carcinogenic and their guts were healthy. We know that they had plenty of dental plaque because we can see mineralized structures between the tooth and the tooth root and the bone on these jaw segments, and those are actually soft bacteria, dental plaque that has calcified. Excuse me. So our ancestors certainly had lots of dental plaque, and dental plaque is healthy until it's not. It serves a purpose in the mouth, and I'll mention that to you in a moment. But that dental plaque didn't cause tooth decay and didn't cause periodontal disease until today. It becomes unhealthy, and it forms a lot of acid and a lot of pathogenic bacteria that creates the bone destruction and the tooth decay. Dental plaque has 3 very important functions. A tooth is very unique. It is a hard structure made of hydroxyapatite that pierces the skin of the jaw, the gum skin, and then embeds itself into the bone, which is sterile. If there was no protection of that very, very sensitive opening where the root of the tooth goes into the gum and the jawbone, bacteria in the mouth would slide down it, get into the sterile bone, and you would have abscesses continuously, and your jaw would fall off. So there is a natural process in the human body's evolution to create a healthy biofilm that surrounds where the tooth meets the gum, that area of penetration, that protects that very, very fragile surface. And that bacteria is dental plaque, and it has three purposes. It is a gatekeeper that allows minerals from the saliva to get into the root to remineralize it as necessary. It has chemical buffers to prevent the acid level from lowering itself below 5.5 so it doesn't demineralize or decay the tooth. And it has all these bacteria, maybe 200-300 species, actually produce hydrogen peroxide that kills potential pathogenic bacteria in the mouth that want to get into that structure where the tooth meets the gum. So the dental plaque is one of the protective barriers. It's like part of our innate immune system to protect the bacteria from getting into the gum tooth margin, getting into the sterile bone, and circulating into our system. That dental plaque is critical.
Yeah, one of the things that some people will talk about on a carnivore diet, they'll notice, some of them, not everybody, but a buildup of plaque, particularly the bottom front teeth, is something I've seen really prominently. And I've heard that from other people, that some plaque is problematic and some is not. And then if you go to a dentist for cleaning, they always scrape it out. I mean, that's just routine. Are you saying that that may or may not be beneficial to do that?
Okay, so I'm going to be controversial. You're going to get a lot of phone calls here. The majority of tooth cleaning procedures are unnecessary if you are eating a healthy diet and if your gut microbiome is healthy. That eliminates 99% of the people, right? So everybody probably, for the most part that you know, other than carnivore people, need to have their teeth cleaned. So the dental plaque is healthy until it's not, like I explained. So if you're cleaning your mouth properly and removing maybe unhealthy accumulation of plaque because this, that, or the other, because you live in the Western world, that's okay. You're not removing the underlying plaque, which is called the pellicle. Unfortunately, when you go to the dentist, just remove the calculus, the tartar, that is the mineralized dental plaque, is not a problem because within 12 hours your body reproduces that dental plaque. The problem is when you go to the dental office and they remove the calculus and then they give you products that you need to rinse in your mouth or brush your teeth with that have a variety of chemicals like xylitol that prevent the pellicle from forming on the root of the tooth. The idea is never to have plaque on your teeth. Literally scrape it off or prevent it from forming naturally. That's where the problem lies, in my opinion, and that I would never encourage a person to do. I would never encourage a person to use any antimicrobial mouthwash or toothpaste in the mouth. And that goes for oil pulling on a daily basis. That is extremely unhealthy. Now, I believe and I know that antimicrobial mouthwashes and oil pulling and toothpaste may be effective as a therapeutic to treat disease for maybe a week to 10 days. I get that. I have no problem with that. As long as you understand you need to rebuild the natural microbiome after that. But if you use an antimicrobial mouthwash on a daily basis or anything that will kill bacteria indiscriminately, and anything that's antimicrobial is indiscriminate no matter what anybody tells you, then you are killing a healthy garden of bacteria that has a biological purpose. One of the purposes, and you as a physician, you know that, there are gram-negative bacteria on the top of your tongue. Everybody wants to kill these bacteria like everything else in the mouth. So antimicrobial mouthwashes will do it. So you'll have a very fresh, wonderful tasting mouth, and you will have killed all these gram-negative bacteria, and now all of a sudden, a natural biological function will stop. And that function is nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway that actually starts in the salivary glands. So the salivary glands have nitrates. Food that you're eating, whatever natural nitrates there are, get into your salivary glands, and then the saliva pours these nitrates, biologically nitrates, into your mouth. The gram-negative bacteria on the top of your tongue, takes those nitrates, chemically changes it to nitrite, and then you swallow it. You don't think about it. It's natural. It's a biological process. If you use, and then a nitrate, as it gets into your gut, changes for the most part into nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is very important for not only gum health, but for cardiovascular health. Also, it reduces blood pressure. So if you use antimicrobial mouthwashes every day, you'll kill this natural pathway and you'll decrease your body's ability to produce nitric oxide from this pathway, and you will increase your blood pressure. There was a paper that was published by several cardiologists a few years ago that was telling other cardiologists, if you have patients and you're prescribing blood pressure medication and you're not getting the results of the blood pressure medication you think you should, make sure your patients are not on any antimicrobial mouthwash, because they are decreasing their natural nitric oxide and increasing their blood pressure while you're trying to reduce it with medication. It's a very unhealthy thing to do. You don't want to kill a healthy garden of bacteria. What you want to do is reduce the pathogenic bacteria to a more normal balanced state, and the way to do that is, number one, have a healthy gut microbiome that influences the mouth, and have a healthy diet that doesn't support pathogenic bacteria, like the carnivore diet.
All right, well, it sounds like pretty good stuff. We've been going an hour. It's been wonderful. Al, let me ask you, just for the folks that are just tuning in late, one, what do you got coming up? Any plans for the short-term future, hopefully the long-term future, given what you're doing? And then also, how do people get a hold of you, find you, see more of your information?
Sure. So I've written 2 mini ebooks that are on Amazon. One's called the Better Belly Blueprint, which is basically animal-based, and then animal-based diet, and then Is Your Gut Killing You, which is a longer story about how our gut is so critical in our overall health. And I discuss periodontal disease in detail and its relationship to the gut and back and forth. I am doing some fun stuff, hopefully doing some research projects to identify spore-based probiotics and their effect in the mouth as well as in the gut to support healthy bacteria in the mouth. That's one of my passions. And I do a lot of consultations. You can reach me at my website, drdanenberg.com, which is DRDANENBERG.com. There's a contact form on the navigation bar. I answer all of my email questions, so you can contact me through that and I'll answer your questions. And I have recipes and all kinds of articles. I have probably over 500 blogs that are on a variety of subjects, including my cancer journey and my experiment with the carnivore diet. I've got over, I'm sure, 14 or more articles about the carnivore diet and what I've done with it and how it's working with me. And of course, the gut microbiome and periodontal health is a big portion of all my blogs.
Well, Al, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your insights. I think it's wonderful that people are, just doing what it takes to take care of their health. One thing I was thinking of, some people mentioned, we have a guy named Dr. John Jakish who has a product called OsteoStrong, which is designed to improve bone mineral density. So that might be something to consider. It's a machine that basically, puts micro stresses through the bone and helps to.
Well, that's interesting. I'd be interested to see how different that is from the frequencies that I can generate from the pulse electromagnetic field therapy that is basically designed to do that too. That
might be something interesting to look at. And then
I will
see if hopefully you'll get a bone scan or a.
Tell me that product again. Osteo what?
OsteoStrong.
Strong.
OsteoStrong. Yeah.
Got it. I'll check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Al, let's plan for another one of these several months down the road.
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, not at all. My pleasure. Good to see you around. Okay.
Good to see you too.
Thanks,
Take care.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Everybody have a great day. Take care now. Bye-bye.